First year of Donald Trump's second term. A presidency defined by speed and power. But at what cost? To US leadership and to international stability. I'll discuss these issues with my fellow colleagues from different corners of the world. I'm Jarosław Włodarczyk. Welcome to Press Talks.
Beata Płomecka, Polish Radio Brussels correspondent, award-winning Polish radio journalist, Brussels correspondent on EU affairs since 2005. Dick Tofel, Gallatin Advisory, author, second rough draft newsletter on Substack, former president and first employee of ProPublica, and former assistant publisher, Wall Street Journal. Waiel Awwad, award-winning international correspondent based in South Asia since 1979, reporting from conflict zones and analyzing global power dynamics, president of the International Association of Press Clubs.
Good to see you all. Thank you for joining us. After Davos, we've seen how powers are exercised. And headlines are striking. Let's take a look.
The most startling line from Trump's Davos speech. Trump's Davos speech backed off escalation in Greenland. That will not prevent an EU rush for strategic autonomy. Davos begins new era grappling with global order shaken by Trump. Ukraine war latest, Russia used updated tactics during latest mass missile and drone strike, Zelensky says.
Richard, my first question goes to you. You are observing Donald Trump 2.0 since a year, the presidency of speed and power. And is it a long-term possible to keep allies together with the US, or it's an opening of the new era of the US?
I'm afraid that Prime Minister Carney is probably correct that it's a new era. I do think we may be overestimating, however, President Trump's overall effectiveness. And to me, the weakness, which I'm not sure people completely understand, traces to an unwillingness to put boots on the ground anywhere for more than a few hours. And so I would just point out that the one thing I think that was overlooked this week is the limited effectiveness of all of this. Just quickly to note, Hamas is still in Gaza, the Chavistas are still in power in Venezuela, and Denmark still controls Greenland. So, yes, I think we are in a new era. Yes, I think Prime Minister Carney was correct, but I think the effectiveness of President Trump may be being overstated a bit.
You didn't mention Ukraine, I believe. This is also the topic. I will move to Beata about it, because this is the question about reaction of European Union. Is European Union taking focus or losing focus on the fundamental things to the security of Europe?
Well, actually, this is a serious risk, of course. But as far as the Ukraine is concerned, I mean, Europe stood from the very first day in 2022 when the Russian invasion started. It was the European Union that stood by the President Zelensky and Ukraine, saying that the initial peace plan that was drafted in Moscow cannot be implemented. That plan, I just want to remind all of us, the plan that envisaged that Ukraine will simply hand over the territory of size of Luxembourg without a single shot being fired. This is the European Union that is helping Ukraine financially, military, diplomatically, politically. So European Union does know where the risks are and what should be done. It wasn't that sure before the Russian invasion. I mean, the European Union, the Western Europe, didn't notice any risks coming from Russia. It was the Eastern and Central Europe that was keep repeating. These countries kept repeating that Europe must take a look at Russia, must be very vigilant, and must help those on the eastern part of the border. So Ukraine, Moldova, those countries that are in this Russian sphere of influence.
I would like to ask you about U.S. and China rivalry and about context of the second term of Donald Trump. How it's perceived in Asia? Is it a new competition or it's a more dangerous situation for China?
Well, I think most of the people in Asia and South Asian region, Yaro, they feel the heat and concern about the rivalry between the United States and China, because they know that the ultimate goal for and the objective of the United States, irrespective of whether it's Trump or any other president, is China. So they consider China as a rival, as a competitor. So they think that there will be a shift of the war zone into this part of the world. However, most of the countries, after Trump visited in ASEAN and that region, they tried to take a neutral position on this issue, not to side neither with the American side nor with the Chinese side. But I think with the Trumpism era that we are witnessing now, most of these countries also feel that they don't trust the United States anymore, because the United States is taking a different position, a different kind of line under Trump, where they can take out any countries and any friend can criticize, and he does not care for the international law. So all this have been taking a chaotic outcome in most of the capitals here. And I think the Chinese are the best people, are taking full advantage of the development now.
Okay, and Richard, I would like to return to the U.S. perspective inside of the U.S. this time. How it's perceived as Donald Trump 1 year, as a good leader delivering promises, or as a person who is dangerous for U.S. democracy, and how even Republicans inside of their party see the future with Donald Trump?
So I think there have been, as you would expect, quite a few public opinion polls and other ways of tapping into opinion on the 1 year anniversary of his coming back to power. I think they make clear the country is considerably split, but the president has lost some ground. He has converted none of the people who voted for his opponent, and he has lost, depending on what estimate you want to see, somewhere between 1 out of 8 and 1 out of 5 of his own voters. So the president is considerably unpopular at the moment, and facing quite a bit of pressure, increasing political pressure, especially, and which is likely to increase as we come up to the congressional elections in the fall.
And Beata, you mentioned about Europe keeping strong. On the other hand, Donald Trump is putting a spotlight to the new deals like Greenland and other, and then all Europe is talking only about it. So do you think that there is a place for independent now with Donald Trump, for independent strategic politics by European Union?
And of course, everything what happened so far during the second presidency of Donald Trump is that the European Union is regaining its power. I mean, at least there is a shift of thinking that Europe must be more independent. I mean, not only on security matters, which is now being changed. There is an increase. Most European countries are spending more on defense than it was in the past. The European production is getting better. So this is the security sector, but also the European Union is thinking about regaining its independence concerning energy, which is, of course, difficult because Europe was dependent on the Russian fossil fuels for decades, and now is simply cutting off the tape and trying to find more markets and other markets. And unfortunately, one of the market, it was the United States, the American LNG, but still it was the better protection than the Russian fossil fuels. So this is the energy. There is also a trade market, and the European Union is seeking other markets than the American because of the unpredictability, the problems with in relations, transatlantic relations, and there is also a thinking that Europe must be more independent on the digital sphere. So everything that happened during the second presidency of Donald Trump, I think is Europe is better off with that.
Richard, you wanted to comment it?
Yeah, I just want to note what I'm surprised by looking at this from the States, and I don't disagree with anything that was just said. What I'm surprised by is I think Europe's greatest leverage with the United States is actually not from governmental behavior, but from consumer behavior. I think the United States would be politically vulnerable to consumer boycotts of American goods and services in the European market. And I'm surprised that hasn't occurred to a greater extent. It has occurred in Canada, and it has had a real effect.
Just a short question.
I'll tell you why.
Go on, please.
I'll tell you why. The European Union was very, cautious. Last year, the European Union didn't want to fight openly with Donald Trump, even though the list of products, American products that can be the tariffs, European tariffs can be put on, wasn't really implemented because the European Union didn't want to start the war. The European Union paid attention and said openly, always, we want the dialogue. But it has changed recently. I mean, this week, the European Union said enough is enough when Donald Trump threatened the 6 EU member states with additional tariffs. The European Union said, the European leaders, and it was discussed during the summit that ended at night in Brussels this night, the European Union and European leaders said we should prepare for the worst and also use these nuclear options. So hitting the American investments, American services, American companies, it is still on the table. That is the so-called trade bazooka. But for now, the European Union didn't want to use it. But we are at the point that Europe is about to use it.
I need to.
Yes, Waiel. Short answer, please, because we have to go forward.
Yes, I just wanted to know in terms of the conflict. There's a common enemy for Europe and the United States, which is Russia. Can the European fight Russia alone without the United States?
Mm-hmm.
This is another reason. This is another reason why Europe didn't fight openly with Trump, because Europe needs the United States in order to deter Russia and to help to end the war. And this is the problem for countries like Poland on the eastern flank. That is why you will not see leaders from eastern flank saying openly that Donald Trump is not doing this and that and criticizing him. These are the Western leaders saying this. Those on the eastern flank know now and knew in the past as well that the United States is a kind of a protection.
What Waiel mentioned, that Russia is our European main enemy, which I fully agree. Now, when in Davos were debates in the luxury Davos, Russia was bombing Kyiv, cutting heat, and what Richard mentioned before, Prime Minister of Canada was offering the third way. Let's see the headlines.
EU, spurred by Trump's tariffs, signs free trade deal with South America. Nostalgia is not a strategy. Mark Carney is emerging as the unflinching realist ready to tackle Trump.
Richard, you wanted to reply, and then I would like to ask you also about the U.S.-China relations, and can U.S. be strong without good relations with Europe when strengthening against China?
Yeah. Just a quick point about Ukraine. I think if you step back and look at Trump's dilemma at this point, it is that Trump has concluded that for domestic political reasons in the United States, he is unwilling to have Ukraine lose the war. And out of his own preference, he is unwilling to have Russia lose the war. And that's why his policy keeps going back and forth and is ultimately somewhat incoherent. The China question. Did you want to move on to the China question?
Right, please. I mean,
it seems to me that the U.S. is only in the long run going to be able to effectively compete with China if it moves back to its competitive advantages. And its competitive advantages are free thought, innovation, and diversity of population and welcoming world populations. With that, if you renounce any or all of those, as Trump has appeared to, you significantly undercut the U.S. ability to compete with China, which has central control and enormously greater scale, and those are their advantages, and you hobble yourself in that competition.
Okay, and while I want to ask you about what was mentioned before about Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who proposed a third way for middle powers. And I would like to ask you about how India is seeing its role, if India would possibly be a pillar of this new middle powers world, or the third way.
Well, I think it's India. I think India is already in that path, because India, neither with the United States camp nor with the Russia-Chinese camp so far, despite the fact that they are in BRICS, they are into also the Shanghai organization, they're also in the G20 and South-South cooperation. But still, when it comes to alliances and all, still India prefer to go to the third path, though it doesn't go without any challenges, because there are challenges to the third path, and that's why the Americans are imposing maximum pressure on India to take side. But I think the Indians so far have continued to be the trump card, which they can go either way in a multipolar world, which they are advocating for that. And I think India is understanding the geopolitical changes, diversifying its relation with all the countries, keeping equidistance from the conflict zone. But however, with the geopolitical changes taking so fast and happening so fast, it's finding it very difficult to retain its own position.
So we are touching all these new orders from new order of the world, and Beata, the European Union just signed an agreement with Mercosur, with South American 4 countries, and do you see it as a strategic move, or it's an emergency insurance move from side of the European Union when having unstable, unpredictable Washington?
Well, I would argue that both answers are correct. That one follows from the other, and unpredictable Washington has prompted Europe to change its strategy, definitely, and seek new export markets. It is no coincidence that Mercosur agreement, negotiated for 25 years, has now reached its conclusion, and precisely now, and it was signed last Saturday. So the EU now, with these 4 Mercosur countries, is creating the world's largest free trade area, with Latin America and European Union citizens of 700 million consumers. So that is one thing. And next week, the European Union will have a summit with India. And that is another way for the European Union to seek another market. And probably we will hear soon that another agreement is about to be signed between the European Union and India. So both answers are correct.
Right, but you sound like you sound like you have a feeling or information that Europe is finally recovering its strategic political agency.
I mean, I hope that is the case. I'm a little bit Eurosceptical. I mean, Euro-realistic, let's say, and I think that Europe is trying to find its own way. That it's high time to change the way of thinking. Too many things have happened at least last year. So I think Europe is trying to regaining its power. Of course, it will take years when Europe will stand on its feet, but still, I think this is the way forward. Of course.
I think India, that's finding with India a big breakthrough. I'm sorry, I had to interrupt you, but there is a big breakthrough in the relation between the European Union and India, and we're having the president of the European Union will be hosted as the chief guest for the Indian Republic Day, and a big event is taking place, and I think it's a major breakthrough for the European Union who's searching for access to the Indian market.
Yeah, this is what the European Union is showing to the world and to the United States. Look, we can have friends others in other parts of the world, and we can create free trade areas with other partners. The United States are not the only one that we can cooperate with.
I have a sensitive question to Waiel about India, because India, as you mentioned before, is keeping neutrality, but now the humanitarian catastrophe in Ukraine is not leaving a space for neutrality. Why India is not more active to prevent or to influence Russia and to stop Moscow tactics to freeze Ukraine cities?
Well, I think your question is very important, not only from India in particular. Actually, the most of the Asian country now taking in consideration the human rights catastrophe, and they're changing their position from neutrality to showing more concern about the human rights violation. And that's why we see reluctant among the Indian establishment not to come openly on that, taking in consideration that President Trump has fired even the foes and the friends. And that's why they wanted to keep aside some of the friends whom they can rely on. So Russia remains the most faithful partner to India, and they will not go openly in saying so, but they're pushing hard that this war should come to an end and encouraging the President Trump peace plan if it happens, and it can be a breakthrough that India will be more than happy, because India now cut short if even their oil purchase from Russia. They're buying more from the American and from Brazil, from UAE, to compensate this vacuum. But at the end of the day, I think it's a matter of concern that this war should put to an end. Then India can take some breathing ground. Otherwise, India gradually will change its position.
And my final question...
If I may add something, this is a spoonful of tar, the close relations between India and Russia for the European Union, because the stance of the European Union is completely different. The European Union is putting sanctions on Russia while India are cooperating. So this is a spoonful of tar, but still trade is more important than politics, probably.
That's for
you
years.
Can't give more incentive to compensate India.
We are running out of time, and I want to ask last question to return to Richard, because a year of presidency of Donald Trump, we started from this, and the Dodge era of efficiency is now. Does it result with lowering U.S. administration potential and institutional memory when facing these global crises?
I actually don't think so, because, it could over the longer run, but the Trump's legal assertions about the sweeping legal powers of the presidency, which the Supreme Court is likely to support, I think will greatly strengthen the hand of his successor in reversing all of this. And on the funding side, you're already starting to see that. A number of funding bills that are now moving through the Congress this week are beginning already to reverse Trump's spending priorities. And if you step back, the truth is that for all of the hoopla last year about Doge, the U.S. federal government spent more in 2025 than it spent in 2024, and it will spend yet more in 2026.
Thank you. Thank you for this. Let me stop you there. The world is seeing new alliances. Old ones are under strain. Will it lead us to the stability or unstable new order? That's all for Press Talks today. Thank you for watching, and thank you, my colleagues, for your insights. I'm Jarosław Włodarczyk. Stay well and see you next time. Goodbye.